Welcome, everybody. It is another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour that we have planned for you today. As always, I am your host, the Cyber Warrior, and this is Cyber Warrior Studios. And I know it's going to be an amazing episode. Got a lot of things planned. The biggest thing is I really hope you came with some questions, because Q&A is on the docket. That's really what we're going for here. So I hope you have your questions. Hope you have your drinks. Hope you have your Army swag, because we all know the Marines ain't shit. Hey, you stick with me for about 10 seconds and we'll be right back. And we're back. And yes, I've got with me today Marine veteran Wil, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce your last name.
It's all good, man. Klusovsky. Clue.
There you go. But me and Wil combined have roughly 40 plus years in IT and cybersecurity, something along those lines. And so before we get started, I do want to say, Monawa, thank you for being back. I know it's been a hot minute. Me and you need to catch up, but thank you for joining us this evening. Carrie, as always, hats off to you. Thank you for being here. Now, saying that, Wil, give us a little rundown about yourself, because I don't think everybody knows you.
Yeah, nobody knows me. I'm a mystery wrapped in an enigma. I will say this. That was an amount of energy I have not seen Derek produce before. And given that we work together, I won't tell anybody else that. So I won't let anybody know that you got that capability.
Oh, dude, how you think I get clients for us? It's all about the charisma, baby.
It is. No, I totally get it. Got the gift of gab, man. Me. So yeah, let's see. 24 years in the industry. So yeah, started in the Marine Corps, which is far superior to the Army. For sure. I spent some time at a few retailers before I got into consulting. So more than half of that 24 years I spent in consulting and managed services. I've worked in smaller firms, mid-market firms, gigantic, huge enterprise, one of the largest kind of consulting companies out there. I've been in kind of every role that exists too. Typical, I'd say, military fashion. You just do whatever you can. So I've worked in, product management, product marketing. I've worked in pre-sales. I've built parts of organizations. I've done R&D, boring old delivery, GRC, industry stuff. I was a C-level at the last gig I was at. So, for me, when I go looking for a job, which hopefully is never again.
The rate we're going, it is never again.
This is the last one, but it's real easy to be like, hey, Wil, we want you to come and run this silo, but understand I'm going to have an opinion about comp plans and TA and training and enablement, and sales, and make sure we got career plans. I mean, I've kind of been there and touched it all. So and again, in kind of typical fashion of I'll wear the fact that I'm a jack of all trades. I know a whole lot, or know a whole little about a lot of things.
Yeah. Isaac in the house. Welcome, Isaac. My boy Sergeant AR. He's in the house. I served with AR, so we got some more Army people in the house today, Wil.
There's how many millions of you and 250,000 of us, so it's just the way it goes. I understand. We like you guys, because after we come in and do all the work, you get to show up and live there.
No, that's the Air Force. Let's get that straight. But no, man, it's been a ride, because when you look at careers and coming in new, fresh and clean, we came in at a point in time where no one knew what to look for. Certifications didn't exist, and if they did exist, it was the bare minimum. And they couldn't ask really for a degree, because what degree was out there that they were going to look for. So, times have changed. Do you think it's been for the better or the worse?
I definitely think it's for the better. I think the problem is we're in that transitional period, right? Like I'll tell you my story, right? When I was in the Marines, I didn't join the Marine Corps to be in a technical field. The Marine Corps kept putting me in one. And so my last duty station, I worked in a room with really thick walls and red wires. And, I was doing WSUS and reporting back to IA and the SOC on training awareness and patching. And I was like, this security thing's kind of got some legs, right? And somebody brought in a snort box one day and this whole IDS thing kicked off, right? And so yeah, I literally, I was planning on getting out at that point because I had a few kids. And I went and I just got whatever technical degree I could as quickly as possible because I know if I had a technical degree, then I could get into the field. And it took me a few years of bouncing around, but yeah, when we did it, you had to kind of be in some technology in IT or something before they let you get the keys to the security world. And
Yeah.
now there's a big push for, hey, you know what? Entry level folks, come on in, we'll train you, and you can learn how to do this on the fly. I think, I was talking to my niece, just had a baby, talking about college, and I'm really hopeful that by the time her kid's old enough to go to college for things like this, you won't need a degree, right?
And you really shouldn't. I mean, so
Degree.
here's the thing about it. So my mom disagreed with me for years. I was like, my degree is pointless. I went for a degree in computer information systems, started for my degree and my master's degree in cybersecurity, and they basically did from intro on up, and I never finished it. I literally owe money for a degree I never fucking completed. So I look at it, I was like, you can get all of this knowledge online. Not only that, but if you know the right people, they don't give a damn about your degree. Unless you're trying to work for the government and Department of Energy or some BS like that, civilian space doesn't necessarily care about your degree if you know the right people because, and this is why I preach networking all the time, because I don't care what college you went to. I don't care if you went to college. I care about what you're doing now. Are you building labs? Are you writing blogs? Do I have a way to advocate for you when you bring in this information or when you say you can do something? If you tell me you can do X, Y, and Z, that's great. Where's the proof? Do you either? Where's the proof?
Some of the most of the best. And remember, if I go back, because you mentioned the degree thing, and I remember this specifically. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but it was probably, it was 2010 to 2015, somewhere in there. First off, our best pen testers didn't have a degree because the best pen testers are, honestly, let's be honest, they're doing it when they're not working even, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those guys eat and sleep that stuff. And I think it was either director of the NSA or CIA or somebody came out and said, we need to stop requiring college degrees for these cybersecurity jobs.
Yeah.
Because the people who are good at it aren't going and getting degrees. And you look, there's a whole joke of if you're a criminal and you do something bad enough, the government will hire you, right?
For more money.
Yeah, exactly. Money. I mean, I did the same thing you did. I got my bachelor's. Yes, I have a master's degree in information security. And I got that specifically because I wanted to be an executive. And at the time, that was something that was going to ramp me up. And now it's a whole different world. So.
And so I look at it. And again, it's not necessarily a knock against degrees. If you want the experience of I think if you're younger, it makes more sense. Because it's more of a social aspect of interacting with people. And you learn a lot of skills if you choose to and take advantage of it in college that maybe you didn't learn throughout, the first 18 years, 19 years of your life. Later on, I'm kind of up in the air. I think it has a benefit because there's still a lot of jobs out there that require it and or recommend that you have a degree, which is really just a requirement that they don't want to put as a requirement.
That's an outstanding point because I'm gonna interrupt you because half the people I worked with, early on in my consulting career, they had degrees in biology, in philosophy, it was literally a checkbox to say, oh, did you go to college? Are you capable of learning? And that's not a bad thing to say, hey, look, I can learn and be taught something. But it wasn't like, oh, I needed a technical degree to get into this technical field. No, it was like, oh, did you go to college? And so that's kind of what I think we're gonna hope.
And let's look at our boss, and let's look at I've worked for him 3 different times. I got hired not because I had a degree, but because they saw I had the ability to learn. I had certifications, I had a degree, I had all this stuff, but it wasn't just that. It was they saw that I could learn the material. So you could throw me in front of anything, give me enough time, whether it's a day, a week, whatever I need, and I can learn it, I can figure it out, and I'll probably master it quicker than a lot of other people. But you have to have something within you that we can see. And from a leadership perspective, if I don't see that hunger to learn, that drive to learn, that need to be in this field, then it makes it very difficult to pull the trigger unless you have that degree and certification.
Yeah, I would always coach, and when I was interviewing for roles and stuff, like especially around like firewall and things like that, right? Look, I don't care what box you know how to use. I'm going to ask you why you make the rule do the thing it does. Why? How does that work? Tell me how that works. What's because we both again kind of grew up in that world of flow charts that existed, and and now some of that stuff's getting automated, and that it's a matter of, do you understand why, not how? Because I'll teach you the buttons to push. I don't care if it's vendor A, B, or C. At the end of the day, the firewall is a firewall. It does what it's supposed to do. If you don't understand that, as an example, and that's the same case with any domain in security. So yeah, absolutely, it's about, do you understand a lot? And I will say this though, for me, and this isn't saying you need a degree, but I have a logical mind. Like, I was programming when I was in high school. I learned like I wanted to be a game programmer back when that was, when it was a job, back when you had to code the graphics.
Yeah, when you actually had to code in every little pixel.
Right. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do graphic art for computers back in the 90s. But so I learned that philosophy, and what it did teach me is how to break down a problem, how things work. Like, I can't code today. Oh, I could if I had to, but I'm not gonna. I haven't logged in.
No, dude, I got my reverse engineering malware certification, and I couldn't read assembly unless I absolutely had to dig back into those books.
I could, like I understand it. I can talk to it. It's the same reason that I can go talk to a pen tester who knows what he's doing and understand what he's saying or she's saying, right? I can have a conversation with them. They say, oh, well, you put this in it, it exploits this part of the thing, and then it makes that happen. And then I can go, oh, so if I wanted to do this, this, and this, and they're like, yeah, absolutely. And for me, that's really cool because it's a validation thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I can't do what they do, but to be able to understand it, that's all. Then I'm like, great, okay, cool, I know it.
That's cool. That's the biggest thing, and we'll get into that. But I got James right here.
What's he got, James?
Talking about WGU, where you can get both certs and a degree, which is pretty awesome. Do we have a devil's advocate? I've never attended WGU. I've heard great things, but I don't know, Will. Do you have anything on this?
No, I mean, I'm like you. I don't care about where you went to school. Again, I got my bachelor's from the school that gave it to me the fastest remotely. And this was in the early 2000s. So like I had 6-week classes and a 1-week break, and I cranked out 2 years of school in like a year and a half or something. So for me, it doesn't really matter where you went to school as long as you have, you learn the knowledge. I do like getting certifications with that stuff because you're learning it. I went to a boot camp back in the day where I got a whole bunch of Microsoft certs, and I got my CompTIA and all that before I went and got my CISP. And it's, a lot of people will frown on boot camps and things like that because you are just kind of trying to get the certification, but those certifications don't make you an expert. They tell you that at day one. They're like, this gives you the basic information to say, I'm capable of doing this job.
I hate the term expert. I absolutely despise it. Anybody who, unless you are going to be an expert in this minute area, for instance, I can look at Alyssa Knight, who prior to her getting into directing and all this stuff with media and stuff like that, was the API queen. She could hack, dissect, and do everything with APIs. I would say she was an expert in API hacking, but I wouldn't say she was an expert in cybersecurity. I wouldn't say she's an expert in X, Y, and Z. Just API hacking, because that is what she knew. She may know a lot more, but that was her niche. Man, I will never consider myself an expert in anything because, like you, even when I was through the Army, everything I did was a bit of everything. It was, a mile wide, inch deep. Why do you think the CISP comes so easy? Because it's a mile wide, inch deep. If you know security, then in all aspects, at least the foundations of every aspect, you can get a CISP.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I go into every room expecting to be the dumbest person.
I hope I'm the dumbest person. If I'm not, I
Especially
change
when I'm
rooms.
talking to other, like, executives and stuff. I plan on going in. And the nice thing is if I come out and, again, if I get that, we have a good conversation and I feel like, wow, I know some stuff, that makes me feel really good. But also it prevents me from going in and saying, I know, this is
Yep.
it, because that's no way to engage. You have to.
So there's two different ways you can look at it, right? My goal, and I have always said I'm the best at what I do. Always. And it was a mindset thing. It keeps my mental health at a higher level. But it was also because you find those people when you go into certain rooms, they know more than you. But are they willing to learn from you? I will learn from that person. I will take in everything they say and I'll give my points of view. I'll learn, will they? If they don't, I am now the smartest person and the best at what I do, and I'm going to move on. And so it was just a mindset thing. And again, it gives you, if somebody's better than you, you learn from them. Plain and simple. And then you move on to the next.
Griffin
So it's
mentioned
all on
something
how you want to look at things, but I think you should always want to be the dumbest person in the room. You should want to learn from everybody there.
Yeah. There's a bunch of people who, speakers, physicists, a lot of other people who are like, you want to use the terms I think and I believe, not I know, right? Because that means you're open to listening, you're opening to learning. That's the way it goes. Well, Griffin mentioned something about competency based, which is
WGU.
My master's was Nova Southeastern. So I got a lot of credit for the fact that I had, I think, 10 years of experience before I went to get my master's. So my master's only took like 2 or 3 years instead of 4. And on that point, because we were talking, just because we talked about the education, every time I see somebody hits me up on LinkedIn and says, hey, I'm graduating with a bachelor's, I want to do this, or I'm going and thinking about my master's, blah, blah, blah. My blanket recommendation is a bachelor's degree with 4 years of experience is worth way more than a master's degree and no experience. Unless you're going to get a job while you do and that's the best part about it. Then get a job that's going to pay for your master's if you want to go that route, right?
That's been my big thing. And so the Army, so here's we'll talk about stupidity, and this more comes down to the financial aspect of things. The Army paid for my master's.
Really?
Well, yeah, because I had my GI Bill. I had already used. I had some that I used in the Guard for my bachelor's, but I had money left over in tuition assistance and stuff that I was able to use in the Army.
Your degree was way cheaper than mine then.
Yeah, except for the fact that I then took out student loans.
Yeah,
I got bills to pay, so we're going to use this money to pay bills.
That's a whole other.
So now I'm back to $55,000 in debt. Yay! For a degree I never finished. But I was going to Webster University for like nothing. And when I moved, because they PCS'd me before I finished my degree at Fort Belvoir, they didn't have the online program yet. It was only in person, and Fort Riley, Kansas didn't have an in-person Webster University. So there was no way I was going to finish my master's. And I wasn't mad at it because it was all papers. That's all it was writing papers. And I was like, so you're teaching an intro to cybersecurity course. You're trying to teach these people cybersecurity, but you're not giving them any hardware or anything to actually do a lab or anything to learn on. And that frustrated me. And especially when I had a NSA 3-letter agency person teaching the intro to cybersecurity course. And I said, hey, if you have an IPS and an IDS, so you got someone trying to break in and they're getting stopped by an IPS, won't they know it's there? And her answer the entire time was, it depends on how much money you spend. I said, time out. There's an opening, and you're getting stopped. So, well, it depends on how much money you spend. It was at that point I walked out. I was
Yeah,
like,
you weren't getting the value you want.
I'm going to go smoke a cigarette. I taught that class at the smoke pit.
Yeah.
Those kids passed. Well, I can't say kids. They were adults, like 99% of them.
Yeah, they're kids.
Passed because of me. And I'm the one that got the A- because she didn't like me.
That's the thing about grades, man. D is for diploma. So Carrie said something I want to address. He said, when I ask a question, people look at me like I'm stupid. Look, be proud to ask all the stupid questions. The dumbest person is the one who sits in the room and listens to all the acronyms they don't understand and hears everything they don't understand and just nods and smiles. There's a Simon Sinek video where he talks about asking stupid questions, and he literally gives an example of where he's in a boardroom and this, I think it was a marketing person or maybe it was a technical person, kind of giving all of this stuff, and everybody's nodding their heads. And because he's the outsider, he's asking all the questions because he doesn't know. And as he's asking all the questions, everybody else sitting around the board table who is afraid to ask the questions because they don't be stupid is like, yeah, I have that question too. What does that mean? Yeah, I have that question. So ask the stupid questions. Ask them. Ask so many stupid questions that you become smarter than the person talking.
Most definitely. Natalie, thank you for joining us. Kev Tech IT support in the house. What's going on, Kev Tech?
Can you set up my Wi-Fi, Kev Tech?
No, you got to set them printers. Kev Tech printers.
Did you see that? Did you see the post today on LinkedIn? I know it was an old post, but
I might have missed it.
Oh, what was it? It was oh man, I gotta go find it now. It was something about getting angry at printers, and then there was all these Office Space references, to
That's a Kev Tech thing. That is definitely Kevin. Kevin's been on the show. Kevin works for, I believe it's Sentinel. Kev, correct me if I'm wrong. It's either Sentinel or Sentinel One. I can't remember which
one. Yeah.
I think it's Sentinel One. I don't know. He finally broke into cybersecurity this year, so.
Well, that's great. I love to hear this, man. I'll tell you what, as much as I love doing what I do, the thing that I love the most is one, being able to mentor people, being able to have somebody who I can actually share all this, what I think is useful and useless knowledge in my head. But the other part is being able to get people into the industry. When, a couple of roles ago, I met a guy who was, he was in physical therapy working in healthcare, and he realized the huge problem that where he was working had with security. And so he got into the industry. He went and got his degree, got his bachelor's in cybersecurity, which again wasn't something that existed. And I was able to help get him a job where I was at. And now he's, a senior consultant or whatnot doing cybersecurity because man, that guy had, 10 or 12 years of healthcare experience. That is invaluable.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I will take that and no cybersecurity experience in a healthcare environment any day.
Yeah. So Kev Tech said Sentinel One. Dude, we work with Sentinel One. So I may end up talking to you one day. It may happen. Or Sam. One of the two.
Yeah, for sure.
So Carrie does have a question. How do I get my foot in the door? I'm not scared to get it smashed where I live. It is like a computer desert. I am having a tough time right now. Carrie has his A+, I believe.
Okay.
I want to say he's going for Security Plus. So, but no degree. But he also builds his own lab. So, how would you recommend someone kind of take that and you know what I mean?
I love this, and I get it a lot. And the answer is going to seem like it doesn't make any sense, but it does. So, one, be willing to take any job you can, but two, know what job you want.
Actually, that does make sense.
Because here's the thing, right? If you say I want to work in cybersecurity and you talk to me, I'm going to ask you, well, where in cybersecurity? Because a lot of people don't realize there's pen testing, there's analysts and threat hunting and intel, there's working in the security operations center, there's GRC, there's a lot of dimensions to security, all those domains.
Engineers on my side with blue teams, SIM engineers, and EDR
stuff
engineers
you could be doing
else.
So you need to be able to articulate what it is about cybersecurity you like to do and want to do, but also be willing to take any opportunity you have to get in the door. Because once you're in, then it's easy. And that any opportunity can still be like an IT role or a help desk role. Because I'll tell you what, it's way easier to transition internally in a company where you're, doing IT stuff or you're doing, anything else
Yep.
into the security role than it is to come in fresh into a security role. So, and the other part of that is network, network, network.
Yep.
So, I don't think I've gotten a job by applying to it online in decades.
Yeah, it's been a while. Ever since I met our boss, it's been a while, to be
Yeah,
honest.
pretty. Yeah, in fact, yeah, my not my first job out of the Marine Corps was, and it was even then like it was like monster.com, apply, interview, got the job. And even when I went there, the recruiting lady was like, "It's really odd that you got the job, that you found us this way and it all worked out. It usually doesn't." And then I think I found one other position, but even that one, I got the position randomly. The guy who would be my would be boss was actually his son-in-law I was in the Marine Corps with, which I didn't
Nice.
find out until after he hired me. But basically, he was able to do a background check on me before I joined.
Dude, I can't tell you how many times now, and I do have another question here from Carrie.
Yeah, yeah.
Carrie, we'll get to you in a second, but this job and my last job, if I don't know someone, our boss knows someone, or you know someone, and there's a connection somewhere,
Yeah.
that networking plays a role. Because in my last job, anytime somebody applied or did something, or we were hiring, my boss at the time would reach out to me and be like, "Hey, do you know so and so? Do you know this person? Do you knew that person?" I'm like, "Let me look. Maybe we've had communication. I may have accepted the connection on LinkedIn, but never talked to them. I don't know." So it's
Yeah,
just one of those things.
if somebody will be like, "Hey, yeah," somebody will reach out with you, "Do you know this person?" And I'll look and be like, "Yeah, I'm connected to him, but I'll check my messages or try to remember if I've had a meeting." And I'll be like, "I haven't, but I guarantee you, within 1 or 2 degrees, I know somebody else who has." Right, and we
Yeah,
can we can sort that out.
precisely. So we got one here, and it's not. So Carrie has a question, but AR did the super chat, so we're gonna go with a super chat here. With cyber threats accelerating exponentially in the past couple of years, what do you predict is going to be the biggest threats in 2025? What about 2030?
So I think I actually think we're probably going to see it this coming year in 2024, but definitely by 2025 is weaponized OT or weaponized IoT. You're going to see that where it's not just about ransom or money, but actually physical harm. That type of stuff happening. We've already got a couple of incidents where hacking has kind of led to death through hospitalization issues. The other part is, I hate to say this, but it's AI, right? Because everybody talks about it, but at the end of the day, AI is going to start developing things, and
Yep.
AI is going to realize it's gonna exponentially make things even easier.
Well, AI can already develop things if you word
Well,
things the
yeah,
right
but I mean,
way. That's the sad
almost on
part.
its
That
own.
is
Like I
the
don't want to say
extreme sad part,
Skynet, but
though, is AI can actually write ransomware for you
yeah,
if you word your question or your what your prompt correctly. It will write it for you,
and then
and we've seen that.
2030. So that's actually it's funny because that's only what 6 years from now, which isn't really that long. I think we're gonna see some stuff start to impact. This is weird to say, space in some way, right? Not
I think
space
we're going to see a
force.
lot of down dishes.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's gonna be, there's gonna be we're gonna be able to get to that, beyond the sort of the sphere of the globe itself and start impacting things, whether that's NASA or SpaceX or whatever else comes up, or these you've got organizations building shuttles to go travel to space for a visit. I mean, there's that part of exploration is starting to come in, and any type of technology that is that new and that advanced is we all know security is the afterthought. So
Yeah, definitely. And that's the sad part, and that's going to be the last point I touch on this question is, as much as we see industry and companies saying they push security. They don't. It's an afterthought. It's a, I've been breached. Let me backfill. Let me figure this out. Let me, whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
So
especially in product companies.
What'd you say?
Especially in product companies, right? Who are
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to push a product and get a product out. Like I talked to a CISO who, had a product background and did security. And he's like, the way he did it, which was genius, was I didn't make it a security requirement. I made it a customer requirement, because customers assume you're going to do the security things. They assume their data is going to be protected. They assume that it's going to be, they don't know enough to explicitly ask for it. And as somebody who's been a product manager, I was like, man, that's brilliant. That's freaking genius.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way.
And that's, and this is the biggest problem I have with, some of these CISOs and directors and things like that for these organizations, is they're beating their head against a wall, trying to figure out how to secure the organization. Well, you make it a requirement for what matters to the organization. So you look at how you can enable the business, but you have to preach on what matters to the business. And that's the only way it's going to happen. Otherwise, it's an expense and they don't give a damn. They're going to be like, what I got to pay? I got to pay someone $200,000. Okay, cool, whatever. No. You need to make it a requirement, and make it a requirement for the business to operate properly. And then we had another one here, which, by the way, AR, thanks for the $5, brother. Here is another question that came to me today. Since I enjoy working and repairing legacy computers, is there a role with legacy computers in IT and cyber? Healthcare? No.
Financial services. You learn mainframe, man. You'll have a job for, well, at least a while. No. There's probably there's a need for that specific talent. So, there's a company we work with. Well, our company now, we just acquired them, right? They part of what they did and made them so well in their pen testing side was they were able to test mainframe. And having worked at some businesses like retailers and finance that still have some of that old legacy technology around, being able to deal with it is absolutely, if you really want to play with legacy stuff, start looking at the federal government. They probably got Windows NT still running around somewhere. No, I mean,
banks are another big one. They were on COBOL code until 5 years ago? 10 years ago?
Our service, whatever the hell they were called, were on 3070s. That's an AS400 system, basically, or an AS3070 system.
Yeah.
Although, depending on how old you are, legacy may mean like Windows ME. So there's probably not a market for that.
Dude, look, I know we're both kind of old. I've been around since computers first came into the home.
Yep.
People are like, I'm older than Google. I'm like, I'm older than the internet. I'm just saying.
Yes, I am. My first computer was an 8086. No hard drive, 5 1/4 inch floppies.
My dad did not have that. We had it was a Packard Bell. I wanted to say Packard Bell or Gateway, because they both came around at the same time. One of those two were our first, and it was MS-DOS 3.1 was what was released in the home initially. And so it was Windows 3.1, oddly enough. And DOS was my first operating system. I grew up on DOS.
We were talking about this in chat earlier, but I still have some floppy disks and old games. I brought them up and showed my daughters like what an actual.
How many you got? Commander Keen or Wolfenstein 3D? That's all
I have Commander Keen on a 3.5 inch. I busted out the Black Cauldron. I've got Falcon 3.0 and some other stuff that it's garbage. It should be in the trash. But
that was all my dad's stuff. It was crazy, man. Like I grew up with it. All right. So quick rundown. This is how I got into computers. I broke my dad's computer. And I didn't actually break it. I turned it on and it was broken. And so I called my buddy's dad and I was like, yo, Bob, what's this mean? And he said, you fried the hard drive. It needs replaced. And I said, shit. I'm like 8, 9, maybe 10 years old at the most. I can't go out and buy a hard drive. I ain't got that kind of money.
Oh, they were like thousands of dollars.
My dad goes out, buys, I want to say it was a 20 meg hard drive. I want to say that's what it was. And he didn't know computers at all. And so when we go to partition it and install DOS or Windows 3.1, whatever it was, whenever I crashed it, I was like, he goes, why are there 4 or 5 like meg drives here? So then I had to call Bob. I'm like, hey, Bob, why is it doing this? He goes, oh, because the operating system only recognizes X amount at a time.
64K.
So it partitions it down.
All you're ever going to need, Mr. Bill Gates.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And from that point on, this is how I got into computers. I never wanted to break another computer and not be able to fix it. So I knew everything about Windows backwards and forwards because my dad only ever used Microsoft. So backwards, forwards, I knew Windows. I knew the hardware. I knew how to fix shit. I knew how to break shit. I knew more about AOL punters than I ever wanted to know because my friends would send them to me all the time. Like everything.
That's funny. I somebody was talking about like Gen Z, like they're, despite having all the technology, they don't master it or they don't understand it. Like they're confused by it because they didn't grow up in like what we had to in Gen X and millennials, where we had to do command line. Like I
love command line.
I had to boot up a different high mem setting to play this game than I did to play that game, right? So I had multiple boot straps that I had to use and all this stuff, and so we understood how things work. So the fact that they have all this technology and it just works makes it harder for them when it stops working or they have to troubleshoot it. They just don't get it.
Yep. And I think that's, we talk about cybersecurity a lot and we talk about how that's one of the biggest threats, but I think even bigger than that is going to be the newer generation that doesn't understand how the hardware actually works. Because they
don't even have to touch it anymore. It's just sassy now.
Again, which is even worse because if you look at it and if you think about it, if we're going to go everything to the cloud, right? It's AWS, Google Cloud, or Microsoft and Azure and everything else like that. And you have the younger generation running that. Nothing against them. Some of them are freaking geniuses. I talked to someone recently who their son broke out of their school's little geofence type of whatever and basically broke their shit and was able to play games and do whatever. Yeah. It is what it is. I'm like, kudos to them. Their school sucks because they couldn't figure out how to actually properly secure shit.
Education gets no budget though.
None at all.
All volunteers.
Oh, it is. And so I look at it and I was like, you're going to have these people that get into these jobs, but don't understand how to actually utilize the hardware, how to actually troubleshoot hardware issues. For me growing up, 8 Echo, if I saw that on a blue screen of death, I immediately went to RAM because that's what it was.
It's interesting too, because they like the whole SaaS model, the whole cloud model, like that could end up being a new career path, right? Because we don't have data centers like we used to, but the data center still exists. It's just owned by one of 3 people, right?
Yeah.
And so there still needs to be people to work in there and deal with RMAs and deal with stuff. But to your point, I think we've gotten to, now things are so cheap, you just replace it. You don't fix it.
And let's be honest, who knows hardware the best?
Well, China.
Gamers know their hardware.
Oh, well, yeah, for sure.
You want your shit fixed and works properly? Call a gamer. Call someone that custom builds their desktops every fucking 6 months. That's who's going to know your shit. And I'll guarantee you, they probably don't have a degree in anything but gaming or graphic design at the most. Just saying.
Nope. You're absolutely. I had not built. So I obviously repaired a bunch of computers when I was a Marines. When I got out, I think I did it maybe one more time, and I hadn't done it for decades. I just buy my Mac because it works. I'm kind of past the idea of past the point of playing with hardware and stuff. But my daughter loves gaming, and she wanted a gaming PC, even though I'm like, I switched to Xbox a long time ago because I don't want to rebuild it every 6 months. I don't want to have to spend $1,200 on a video card
Yeah.
every year just to make my shit work.
Dude, the graphic card prices are
Yeah.
I
So
can't
I
even
had a
deal.
card laying around. I had a 3090 because I was mining, with the bed.
Can
So
you
I was like,
send me
hey,
a 3090 or did you give it to your daughter?
well, I had the 3090, so I told her, I was like, you got money in the bank. I was like, I'll give you the card. I'll teach you how to build the PC, but you buy the rest of the parts. So I got to show her how to build one and put one together. It was
I
eye-opening because I haven't done it in a while, and I was out of practice, man.
I
It
put
did not boot up right away.
$1,500 into my son's computer. I built his before mine. So you and I both know the kids come before anything. So my son wanted to get into graphic design, all this other stuff. I was like, all right, I can't afford the parts for, the Intel and top of the line NVIDIA and everything else because prices are through the roof. But this will do for you. And so $1,500, I custom built him a computer. And like I said, I parted it out and bought it little at a time until I could finish it. Then when I moved here about 2 years ago, I was like, I can't deal with what the VA gave me. It doesn't work for the video editing that I do. Even though I put a graphics card into it, it was an AMD. I forget what I have in this piece of crap, but whatever. I built my own computer and went to NVIDIA.
Mm-hmm.
Not initially. I had
NVIDIA.
an old AMD MSI that was the same model as that's in here, that's in my son's, whatever. I had like 3 cards for that. And then finally they came out with the 3000 series and I just caught it on a deal. I still have RAM sitting here that came with the deal because I had to buy the RAM and the graphics card at the same time because of the way things were working out and the shortages and everything like a year or so ago. You had to catch a deal in order to be able to get a card. So I got a 3060 like last year that's in my computer. And that's the newest card I got.
Anybody want some, what are these?
Hold up. I did not notice. So Sarn AR, who just happens to look up everything. Highest official unit prefix is
a Yoda byte. That's awesome. I wanted to be Yoda for that, but I'm sure it's got a mathematical reason behind it. So
and Griffin knows about the raffles. Yeah, I got lucky on one of those, brother. So UC Berkeley is trying to get the next one to be a hellabyte.
Oh, that's not.
That's funny.
I remember trying to explain to my kids where Google came from because it was a Googleplex, and they were like, "What, huh?"
Dude. Well, now you got to talk to them about Alphabet. Let's be honest, because Alphabet is the parent company now of Google. So that all confuses me because that's basically a shell corp for Google. That so Google is still everything.
James is talking AMD. I have always been NVIDIA and Asus. That's pretty much.
I love Asus.
EGA
or Asus.
No,
Asus. NVIDIA. I used AMD and ATI for years solely because it was the best bang for your buck. Exact same thing for less money. I still want a Threadripper. Don't get it twisted. I want a fucking Threadripper that costs like $2,000. I want one so bad.
I got 5. I don't know what these are. TI. I think they're like 1080s or 1070s. I could probably crack several passwords with that.
Dude, 1080 Ti's are ridiculous. They're still. I still think they're the top 3 in password cracking and gaming.
Yeah,
the 1080 Ti.
I think I paid like $500 a piece for them. So you guys make me an offer, I'll ship them.
Lucky son of a bitch. That would cost like $1,800 right now. A 1080 Ti would probably cost like $1,800 right now.
Oh, let's see.
Oh man, I do have Razer, James. My on my personal, my custom build is a Black Widow Elite keyboard, which I got to replace because I hit the keys way too hard and it doesn't like that. And then I have my mouse is Razer.
Is that because your army brain's like can't figure out what letters to spell?
I don't know how.
Words hard.
Words are hard. But now, look, everybody in chat, you all are amazing. Please ask questions as they come about. Remember, super chats take precedence as always. But, well, as far as breaking into the industry, because we see a lot of people coming from other career fields now. You and me, been in for a while, both in a position to be able to hire people. If you were going to hire somebody right now for your role in, dude, I don't even know how to explain your role right now, to be honest.
I am a translator. That's what I am. I can talk to marketing and I can talk to product. I can talk to people who do the work and I can talk to people who sell the work. And that's a rare skill. That's my job, is to go back and forth.
So if you were looking for someone to come in and fill your role, or work for you, what would you be looking for?
My first requirement is always critical thinking and problem solving, right? You need to be able to understand what's going on, even if you don't understand what's going on, right? And what I mean by that is, I'll tell you a story. I remember when augmented reality was first coming out, I was in consulting and some client asked me about the security around it. I had never even heard about it. This guy's like, yeah, you go to the Met, you pull your phone up, and then like this thing comes up and it starts talking to you and telling you about the thing. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. He's like, yeah, so what are the risks with that? And I was like, I've never seen that. I don't know anything about it. So all I could do was think, okay, well, how would that work? Okay, well, that thing's talking to your phone through the Wi-Fi. There's definitely some app somewhere. There's some and I just was able to like deduce, and that's literally what I told him. I was like, I've never seen it. No, so being able to think through that process, say, well, here's probably likely the areas that are of concern. Here's where the risks probably lie with that. And if I go and do some research, we can come back and find out what that is. That is the kind of, again, going back to maybe having programming capability. I'm not going to say it's a natural skill. I mean, it is for me. But it can definitely be taught. So being able to be able to break down a problem and understand what's really going on, because especially in my role, because I have to talk to different people. Like, if I talk to you and Sam, and you guys will say all of this shit that's really technical and smart, and I understand most of it. But then I have to go take it and make it sound like something that a salesperson can understand. And I have to be able to break it down. That's the hardest
part.
Yeah,
or translating the sales for us.
Well, and there was a joke about AI taking over developer jobs, and the joke was, well, then product management would have to be able to tell developers what they actually need done, because they can't. Again, they don't. So there's that translation between those. So I think being able to understand the root of what's being asked in those different contexts of business, in marketing, in sales, in security. And then the second part is just being okay with I've met lots of people in security who will not talk about a topic they do not know everything about, right? If they haven't researched it to the nth degree, they'll be like, oh, I don't know, I'm really afraid. Where me, I'll talk about anything, because I might know this much about it. I'll tell you how much I know, and I'll infer the rest, and we'll have a really grand old conversation. But you got to be able to do that. You got to be comfortable learning just enough.
Yeah.
And not have to be like the subject matter expert in it. That's what I would say.
And and I don't disagree with that, because at the same time, you look at the positions you get put in, especially as you start to move up the chain, you have these technical aspects that you should really know. At a junior level, I expect you to be able to learn. I expect you to be able to grow. I expect you to be hungry and driven. At a mid-level,
you got shit to do.
Yeah. At a mid-level, I expect you to understand any technology that we require, and then be able to learn even more. The learning never ends. That's one thing people don't understand. The learning will never end. You have to be hungry for it. Senior level, that is where from mid to senior, you develop those skill sets, if possible, to talk to clients in such a way that I'm not going to lose them. If I can't put you client facing and make you a lead on a project, you're never going to hit that senior level.
And for those who are working internal to a company, that same thing exists, but you have to be able to go talk to business unit ABC.
Yeah.
And communicate to them what needs to be done. And you need to be able to work with them. I had some mistakes in my early history, where I had a team of desktop support and network engineers and some new project, and I'm like, go over to the development people and get the requirements for this new thing. And he's like, I don't know how to do that. And me and my brain, I'm like, well, go figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
But no, on me, no, that's not what you do. All right, let me show you how to do that. Let me teach you how to do that. Here's how that works. And go do, because that's part of like becoming that next level, getting to that next level above. Like again, and I talk about this a lot too. Man, I love sysadmins with 20, 30 years experience.
Oh, dude, they're the
God
best.
bless you
They're
for
the best.
coming to work every day and doing the same boring shit over and over and over, because I could never.
I had one. I had one in the Guard when I was in the Air National Guard. So this is why I talk shit on the Air Force too, because I was in the Air National Guard.
Everybody talks shit. The Air Force talks shit on the Air Force.
So the sysadmin we had, and she knew everything. But she is who put me in my place and actually taught me how to learn. Because what would happen is I would find a problem. Somebody would come to me with some shit and be like, hey, this is broke. It's doing this, this, and this. And I'd go to her. And I'm like, hey, do you have a fix for this? She'd be like, did you look it up?
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Did you do your research? I'm like, well, after about 2 or 3 times of that, you learn real quick.
Do it first.
Find all the ways that you could fix it. And then if it don't work, then go to her. But it made sense, because then you learn how to research. You learn how to look for those keywords and trigger the keyword search engines and the algorithms and things like that to get the information you need. Without that, you actually look and you're like, I don't know how to Google, so I'm going to put in an error code but I'm going to leave out what this error code pertains to. No, you might want to put in Windows error code this.
Yeah,
and you'll get a
context.
response. So through her, I learned so much about how to troubleshoot issues, because I learned layer 1. I learned, 9 times out of 10, I would look from layer 1 to layer 7 and go through it all. But with her, it was sometimes it's the user, sometimes it's you, homie. Go figure out what the fuck broke. And you're like, all right, I'll figure it out. Fine. All right, you bitch.
Well, and what she taught you wasn't necessarily, well, I mean, it definitely was how to learn, but it was because what you were doing was looking for the answer.
Yeah.
When you could find the answer on your own. Like that, then that's
why I loved her, because once you ran out and you realized you couldn't find the answer on your own, maybe it was something unique to the base that I was on, then she'd be like, okay. Then she would be like, so this is what happens within our environment. It happens on occasion, da 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 da. But if you did not make the attempt to actually figure out the solution to the problem and just went to her, she wasn't going to answer you.
It's like, what I said at the beginning about like interviewing people. It's the why. Like, do you understand why this is, like, you need to be able to come to me with, this is what's happening. This is what should be happening. I don't understand the delta here. Can you explain that to me? Right. And then she's like, oh yeah, our shit's all jacked up and this works differently. Right.
And that's,
like
that's some of the biggest shit though. Within our industry, that's the biggest thing. So this goes back to my days learning electrical engineering, because going there as a 25 Romeo within the Army, that we had to go through electrical engineering. And this is why I struggled in that course, was because I had to know why things work the way they do. Okay, positive goes to negative, or negative goes to positive. This works this way, this works that way. Why? FM. What the
Series,
fuck does FM mean?
Parallel.
Fucking magic. I don't know. No, fucking magic don't work for me, homie. Tell me
frequency
why
hopping.
things work this way. Why does a capacitor do what it does? Why does a resistor do what it does? And they could not give me these answers.
Yeah, because they learned the answers for their level of not like, it's the same way that, and it is the same thing with computers. There are very few of us who understand the binary, the ones and zeros. I have a friend of mine who I went to high school with who was a low-level programmer. He worked for Palm and
So he
Sony.
understood assembly and binary.
Yeah, like I mean, like he's the one that makes it work, right? Like
Yeah.
without those guys, it doesn't happen. And yeah, it's we don't understand. Like I don't
And my
understand.
thing is,
Most
I have to
people
know
don't.
why. I have
Yeah,
to. So I struggled through that course. Only course in the entire MOS that I struggled through, and it was because I had to know why. If I don't know why this does that, I I'm not going to remember it. It's not going to work for me. And there's so many in our industry that are the same way. They learn by knowing the why. If they don't know the why, it's not going to trigger for them. It's not going to hold. I know why buffer overflows work. I know why certain exploits work. SQL injection, look, I may not be able to go through your entire web app, but I can tell you why SQL injection works.
yeah.
I can tell you why these things happen. I can tell you why changing your passwords every 3 months does not work. I can give you the answer. But if you're not going to listen, or if you make it harder, it's all about the why. Why do things work the way they do? And those are the people you want in this industry. The
Yeah,
ones
it's the
that want
hunger
to
you
know
need.
why.
That's the hunger you need. If you don't care about the why, you're never going to get better at it.
You have to know the why. You have to be curious about it and really really think about it. Like, why does this work the way it does? And that's why I get when people want to take out a SIM. Well, why? Or why don't you have one in the beginning?
I can tell you why they
Well,
want to take it out
because
because it's not being used right.
that's always what it comes down to.
I
They
love it.
don't
William
hire
said
the personnel.
AEIOU, AEIOU, but especially why.
Mhm.
That is fantastic. That's I'm gonna put that on a shirt.
So I think that as an industry we can do a lot better. I think that as an industry, our CISOs need to quit being hired for who they know. Quit hiring your friends that have never worked in security. Because you know as well as I do that shit happens. They have never touched a single security product, but then become an executive. Because yeah, that makes
Well,
sense.
yeah, well, there's different kinds of CISOs, and each one has its pluses and minuses until you can reach the pinnacle and merge all of those together. There's a few of those around, right? Those who can balance everything from the business, the technical,
They're
the
few and far
relationship.
between, but
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Yeah, and they they are worth the money that they are required to be paid.
Yeah. Dude,
And I will braggantly say,
if I could hit that CISO role of those that have done both sides of the fence and understand business enablement,
look, man,
maybe $550,000 a year.
I could do that role. I've talked to like tons of CISOs. I'll give you guys my I will never tell anybody to not go down the CISO path.
Oh
But
no.
I will tell you the whole reason I got my master's degree was because I knew it would help me become an executive sooner. And as I got into consulting and I started getting groomed and learning about, leadership and all of that stuff, I realized I didn't want to be a CISO.
Dude, that's
Uh,
me and you are on the same wavelength there because like I want to be, but I don't want to be, right? It's one of those things where it's like I
they're
want
in a
to just
bad
to at
place
one
right
point in
now.
time in my career, just once in my career, I want to have chief in my title because I was never a warrant officer. So I want chief in my
I had
title.
the chief, but I wasn't a CISO. I didn't have to worry about. Yeah, being a C level is different than being a CISO, and that's the problem because so many CISOs are not actually executives at the business.
And that's
They
the
don't have
bullshit
DNO.
behind it. They have
They
no
don't have
say.
they don't get DNO. They don't get golden parachutes. They don't get insurance protection. They don't get the same protection the other officers do. They get a bunch of money and told to shut up, and that's
Yep.
kind of what happens. So,
William Bailey, I could be Chief Warrior. I will be Chief Warrior all day, homie. All
Chief
day.
Warrior,
It'll
awesome.
happen. But I do.
I
I look
almost
at
went
it.
CW too.
I think the CISO is Griffin actually right here. It's a scapegoat.
It's a well for the right business knows how to enable it and use it. For a lot of businesses, it's a I won't say necessary evil. Man, we're just immature. We're still growing up. It's ridiculous. Security's weird. I talked to a CISO last week who I think explained it. The way I used to say it is, I had a colleague of mine in the day would say security is just airbags and seatbelts, right? We all like to think we're special forces and fucking tier one, dropping in behind enemy lines and fighting the bad guys. But at the end of the day, our job is safety, right? It's to make sure bad things don't happen.
Yeah.
And the guy I was talking to was like, "You're right." He's like, "But it's brakes." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, because I would always say you don't buy a car for the seatbelts or the airbags. You buy it for how well it handles, how fast it goes, all that. He's like, right. But you also want to be able to stop when you have to. And he said, so when I look at putting in controls and putting in things, yeah, I'm impeding the progress of something for a good reason. Right.
Right.
I'm doing these things because you don't want the car to crash, because you don't want it to lose control when it's coming out of the corner, all of this stuff. I was like, that's brilliant, Omar. I'm going to take that and I'm going to use it from now on. So it's about applying the brakes at the right time.
And that's really, if you think about it, that's what it comes down to, though, right? Because you want business enablement. You want the car to be able to drive. You want it to be able to go as fast as you need it to go. You need to be able to make those turns and do whatever's necessary. But at the same time, if you cannot impede an attacker, then you're missing something. And so what we will find within this industry is many attackers will go after the weakest link. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, we have found recently it is hospitals. It is critical infrastructure. It is things that have been put in place for years with make the blinky lights blink, because we cannot afford, due to whatever funding, to make it any better.
Well, it's not those. That's the I used to work in the I used to have a role where my job was to talk about security per industry. So my job was to talk to the people who work in different industries and say, here's where security fits into you. And the CIA triad for healthcare and manufacturing is upside down. Availability is number one.
Right.
That's it. Like you cannot like it, if somebody is getting healthcare or putting production and that's how they make their money, the first thing they need is availability at
Yep.
the risk and cost of confidentiality and integrity.
And I don't negate that. What my problem.
No, you're right, but that's where it comes from, right?
Right. And what my biggest issue with those is these companies that implement software that say I'll be there to update you and patch you and do all these things into the ether. So then they're gone. And now how are these hospitals that don't make the money that people think they do? Or maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe you're a UPMC and you're a multi-billion-dollar industry that refuses to upgrade shit. You know, maybe you do.
I hope that's not privileged information.
Oh, it's not. It's just the fact that you look at banks. I know the fact that if you just turned your head and looked at a screen, you know they worked on COBOL code because it was a black screen.
Because the screens are still green and they have to hit the arrow over and over.
Dude, it's just one of those things, you know. So if you know this shit is out there, and you know these companies, the bigger medical industries within the United States are capitalists. They want their money. So when you're looking at it from that lens, why upgrade if this company went out of business? Well, fuck, all right, I'll just leave all this shit there. I'll just leave it there.
James said something here. Oh, he's supporting the medical industry. Oh, and he's patchwork system.
Yep.
Yeah.
Patchwork systems. And it's been a culture shock from what I'm used to. It is, dude. It absolutely is.
It is.
But I don't blame the hospitals. I blame the parent company that owns whatever that hospital is.
Well, even then, they have. And I don't know all of them do. And James, maybe you do. Like I know there was a point in my career where I almost worked in healthcare, and I'm glad I didn't. But
Me and you both.
there's a CIO of the medical system, and then
Yep.
there's a CIO of like IT. So they're kind of like manufacturing. They've got their hospital systems and they've got their enterprise systems, and they're kind of separate. And yeah, you can't tell a doctor he has to memorize 16 different passwords to get on all these systems. You just can't.
No, and so that's where again, that's where the issue lies, is we have to centralize how we're going to do things within the medical industry. We have to make it more secure, and we have to make it to where you're not relying on a supplier.
Well, it's super expensive. That's the thing. It's called re-engineering it. We know how to do it. It's called, like taking. I mean, if you in a lot of, and I do know a lot of healthcare. Well, so I know a lot of people in healthcare, specifically on the insurance side too, which is a little different. But they also work in that space, right? Not less financial services. But anyway, point being, like they're adopting a zero trust methodology. They're going through their identity.
Yeah.
They're doing all the things they have to, but it's such a huge lift because they do have all of these legacy systems and all of this old crap. And I worked with one of the larger healthcare organizations in the world, or at least in the United States, a few roles ago. The guy had 10,000 vendors.
Yeah.
10,000 vendors. Imagine doing third-party supply risk management for 10.
I can't even do TPRM for them. No. No, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But look, hey, anyways, we are over the top of the hour. I want you to give any advice for those breaking into the industry, those trying to just make their name. What advice would you give them?
I'm going to say kind of the same thing. One, look for any opportunity you can, but know what it is you want to do. And two, build those kind of combined. And then two or three, build a personal brand, right? Get yourself out there, contribute to something. Even if you just want to network, that's fine. Like you don't want to be out there writing blogs or doing content. That's okay. But make yourself known. When you network and connect with other people on LinkedIn or whatnot, have conversations with them, meet with them, talk to them, go to your local, find your local founders group or your local get-togethers. I guarantee you all of the big name security companies have some kind of like coffee hour, happy hour, free pizza thing going on once a month somewhere that a sales guy is presenting. Go there and meet people and talk to people, get to know people in the industry. Ideally, getting in is the toughest part, but you want to build yourself towards one thing, and that is you want to be in a position in the future where people want to hire you for you instead of trying to apply to a position that's open. When you finally get yourself established, you want to be looking at companies you want to work for, people you want to work with, and they should be coming after you. So think about all of that as you're growing. I get it. It's a long hill. You're pushing it up. You're pushing the boulder up the hill, but get that freaking mindset going early.
Yeah, definitely. And I can't disagree. It really has always been about networking for me. That is one of the biggest things I push. And yes, getting your foot in the door can be difficult. It can be hard. You're talking to someone that had a degree in about probably 8 certifications getting out of the military, that it took me almost a year to get a job. So yes, I understand the struggle. I understand how hard it can be, but it is possible. And it is possible to do it in less time than you think, because you have the drive, the will, and the power to be able to do it. You just got to do it. You got to go for it. And you got to network. Network is what saved me, and it will save you. Now, otherwise, look, all super chats, all tips, all donations for anything down in the description below. As always, helps benefit the show. But recently, we're going to donate that to youth football. So that's still happening. We're going to keep it going. Otherwise, hey, look, you all take care. Have a fantastic Freya's Day. Have a fantastic weekend. And I'll talk to you all next week with another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour.